Kidnapping. Joining me now is Dr. Rebecca Bailey, a PhD in psychology, who's also Jay-Z Dugard's therapist. She's the author of Safe Kids, Smart Parents. Also with me, Dr. Judy Ho, a clinical and forensic psychologist. Welcome to both of you. Dr. Rebecca Bailey, let me start with you. Obviously, very different case to Jay-Z Dugard, and yet there are parallels, I guess, in how these young women recover from an ordeal like this. Are you slightly surprised, as I am, and not necessarily for the wrong reasons, I'm just surprised that Hannah Radisson, within 36, 48 hours of this terrible ordeal and discovering that her mother and son have both been brutally murdered by this man, went online for a whole day engaging in a pretty frank and open discussion with random strangers. Today she did a big fundraiser. It seems to me slightly odd behaviour, and that perhaps is not in her best interest. But what do you think?
I'm not surprised at all. I think that different people process things differently, and this is her way of owning her story and somewhat taking control of the story. Do I have concerns about the possible things being taken out of context and blown up that she may not have intended to? I do. But at the same time, there is a way that she's announcing, this is not my shame, it is his shame. And I think that's really important. She sounds like a bunch of 16-year-olds that I've worked with, seen, have in my own home.
Dr. Judy, I mean, the other area that still remains slightly mysterious is whether at any part of this Hannah Radisson may have gone voluntarily with James DiMaggio. We now know that they'd gone on various day trips to Malibu and so on, that exchanged apparently 13 phone calls on the day of this incident. It sort of creates a potential picture that maybe at the start of this she thought she was going on some new adventure, oblivious to the mayhem he had caused without her knowing, about her mother and her son being killed and her brother being killed.
Absolutely, Piers. And I think, in a way, her announcing everything on social media and having this question and answer session was her way of kind of clarifying where she really was at. I bet that there are people who are thinking, hey, maybe you were complicit in this, or maybe there might have been some kind of collaborations, and I think she really wants everybody to know. I mean,
either way, she remains a victim. I mean, she's 16 years old, and this guy clearly has some sort of crush on her. We know that now from what she said in the online debate, and also clearly has groomed her in some way and pursued her. She remains a victim, but it certainly answers some of the questions about why, perhaps when they met complete strangers on horseback, she didn't immediately raise a red flag.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a family friend, a trusted individual of the family, one of her father's best friends. And also, she didn't want to be killed. And that's something that she said also online, that she was afraid that if she said something at that point when they ran into the horseback riders, that he would kill her if she said anything. So.
And Dr. Bailey, you've obviously worked very closely with Jay-Z Dugard. I mean, yeah, respond to that if you want to, yeah.
Well, there's so much attention on the idea of the quote-unquote stranger abduction, but we know statistically that abductions are highly more likely with family members. And this is the takeaway from this, sadly, that we do really need to pay attention to some of the people in our kids' lives and try to understand their intentions. I in no way want to sound like I am blaming this family. But, you know, here is this older man spending a lot of time. So... And I really want to bring that home, and that was the premise in our book over and over, is the importance of revisiting and talking to your children and understanding that non-familial abductions are rare. And this is, in my book, a familial abduction.
Right. Yeah, I think that's right. Finally, Dr. Judy, just very quickly, if you can, what advice would you give to the Anderson family for trying to move on now? Obviously, she's out and about tonight, Hannah. She's been engaging with people online, but what other things should she be doing, do you think?
I think there's a big part of families who have been traumatized to try to normalize everything and try to bring everything back to a stable point. But there needs to be some type of processing. I think the online venue may not have been the best way, because that could open her up to further criticism, a lot of questions she might not be prepared to handle. But I do think that there should be some type of processing going on, perhaps with a trusted professional, maybe with family friends, to really lean on each other, not to ignore that this has happened.
Dr. Judy, Dr. Rebecca Bailey, thank you both very much indeed. Coming next, explosive Michael Jackson.